Can you say, redemption is mine?
Redemption is mine.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It is funny, huh? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to April. I know technically today's the second day of April, but welcome to the first video in my full month of your video suggestions. I am so excited about this month. Perhaps not out there in the world, but here on my channel I think this is going to be a lot of fun, a great distraction, and a way to get you guys involved and engaged and thinking about something other than all the craziness that is happening right now. So I've been compiling a list of your video suggestions over the last week and a half or so, and I've got quite a few pages here of some really great ideas. So today we are kicking things off with a suggestion that was actually from a couple of you. They might have all been worded a little bit differently, but today we are going to be playing with some very neglected shades inside of some of my palettes. This idea again came from a few different people. Maria asked me to use my least favorite shade from each palette, and then Imelda, I hope I said that name right, can't read my handwriting very well. But she asked me to use some of my most ignored palettes. And then Stacey asked me to do a video using my most neglected shades inside some of my palettes. So I'm rolling all three of those ideas into one. And today we're going to be using some of the shades inside some of the palettes that just do not get very much love for me at all. I'm sure we all have them, a shade or two inside some of our palettes that we just don't really reach into. So I went through my collection. I picked out some of the more obvious ones for me. We're going to use each of those shades to create one single, hopefully amazing eye look. But I hope that you guys are excited about this video. Before we get into it, be sure that you are subscribed to my channel if you haven't done that yet. And now let's go ahead and take a look at some of these neglected, unused, unloved shades. Alright you guys, so I went through all of my palettes, and the funny thing about this idea is I don't just have a lot of neglected shades, I have a lot of palettes, period, that are neglected, and all of them I love, and that can only point to one thing. I have too many eyeshadow palettes, which really should not surprise me at all. I knew that before going into this video. But there were a couple of palettes that I really love, that I use a lot, that had some very obvious neglected or least favorite shades inside them. So I'm going to share with you guys the shades first, and then we'll get into creating the eye look. Let's start off with the Sultry palette. One of my all-time favorite palettes, and probably you can guess the shade inside here that is the most neglected, and it is the shade Bloom. Now, I'm actually not one of the people that think it was a bad idea for them to put this shade inside this palette. I think it's a fun pop of color that pairs really well and adds something different to a lot of the shades inside here and a lot of the looks that you can get out of this palette. But the reason the shade is so neglected is this is not a palette that I reach for when I'm wanting to do something different and creative. This is the palette I reach for when I want to do something basic. And I'm not usually looking to throw a salmon color in my crease when I'm doing a basic look. But today we're going to get some use out of this shade. I actually do think it is a pretty shade. I wouldn't say this is my least favorite. Well, it probably is my least favorite shade inside this palette. But this palette is full of some really, really amazing shades. But I do still like this shade. I just don't use it very much. Moving into a newer palette of mine, it is the Nubian 3 Coral palette. I love this palette. I love the peachy pink tones in here. They are stunning, but I have still yet to really use these grays inside here. Grays and silvers are not shades that I reach for very often, but today we are going to get some use out of these grays, specifically these shimmery grays right here. We may dip into this one right here as well. We'll see. The next palette, and specifically the shade, is one that meets all of those criterias. It is very neglected. It is one of my least favorite shades, probably in my entire collection. Here's the thing though, it's one of my favorite shades to swatch, but it's one of my least favorite shades or colors to put on my actual eyes. And it happens to be this one right here. Insert the Jaws theme music. The blue. This blue right here. If you happen to see my video where I tested out all these little ELF bite-sized palettes, you'll know how much trouble I had with the shade in that video. I had a very difficult time using this shade with just everything else that I was given in here, but I have high hopes that I can make this shade work using some of the silvers and even that peach color, and I am determined to get back at this shade because I feel like it beat me last time. I'm not going to let it beat me again. I did want to show you guys one more palette though. This is also a very neglected shade inside one of my all-time favorite palettes, and it is the Nubian 2 palette by Juvia's Place. You might see a bit of a similarity here. This blue right here is a nearly identical dupe to the blue inside the ELF palette. I just wanted to swatch these for you guys so you can see them side by side. So there they are. This is the ELF blue. This is the Juvia's blue. So again, Juvia's is right here. ELF blue is right here. Do you see how completely similar those are? Even the formulas feel pretty much identical. So I think what I want to do today is use the ELF shade on one eye and use the Juvia's blue on the other eye. And then we'll actually see if they perform the same on the eyes, because I really think they're going to. So those are the only shades that we are going to use today to create this look. It is definitely going to be outside of the box, definitely going to be outside of my comfort zone, but I'm really hopeful that we can create something that is still beautiful, even if it's not something that I would wear every single day. So I did already apply some of my makeup. Today I actually used the Wet n Wild Dewy Foundation mixed with the Sephora 10 Hour Wear Perfection Foundation, which I will link down below. For concealer, I used my Revlon Candid Concealer, and then I used in my eyebrows my BH Studio Pro Slim Brow Pencil. For my bronzer today, I used the Ofra & Samantha March River Bronzer, and for my highlight, I did put on the Makeup Revolution Just My Type highlighter. I did also put on blush, and I used this Persona blush again today. This is the color Caramel. Loving this blush so very much. I may actually add a touch of the peach blush at the very end, because I think the look that we're going to do is a little bit more kind of peach toned, but we shall see. Let's go ahead and jump into the eye look. I'm going to start off by applying just a little bit of eye primer. This is the Profusion eye primer. I am going to set that primer down with a little bit of my Rimmel Stay Matte powder. Again, I just use the tiniest amount and mostly run that lightly through the crease and on my lid, where I get creasing very quickly if I don't set it down. And now we're going to start off in the Sultry palette in the shade Bloom. This is kind of going to act as our transition shade today. I know this is probably going to make this look more colorful than I typically would do. But if there was a color that I would pair along with a blue eyeshadow, it would be either a peach or a pink. And this is kind of a little bit of both. So we're just going to apply a little bit of this right up above my crease. This is mostly just going to kind of peek out above the blue that we'll put on the outer part of the lid. I thought about doing a blue halo eye, but I actually have like a video conference activity sort of with my boys tonight. And we'll be on Zoom with about 100 other people. And I really just, the blue eyeshadow is going to be uncomfortable and unique enough already. I really think a halo eye would just be a little too out of my comfort zone for a teleconference meeting, if you know what I mean. One of you did have the suggestion to do a teleconference makeup look, which I think is such a great idea. I think I saw that Sona Gasperin, I can never say her last name, the owner of Persona Cosmetics, did a video like that on her channel recently, which I think is such a good idea because so many people I know are doing that every day right now. Alright, so there's the shade Bloom. I am going to add, let's see, do I want to pop this on the lower lash line? I think I do want to add a little bit of this to my lower lash line. So I'm going to take my Juvia's Place Small Buffer and we're just going to add a little bit of this right down here to the lower lash line. I think my brush was dirty. Good one, Mandy. That clearly is not peach. It's like gray. When are you going to clean your brushes, Mandy? If a quarantine can't make me clean my brushes, I'm afraid there's just no hope for me. So I'm going to try and wipe some of that dark off and try it again. Alright, so now before we move into the blue, I actually want to go into the Coral palette right here. We're going to take the darker gray right here and we're going to pop a little bit of that through the crease and kind of onto the lower lash line, basically just to kind of deepen things up before we go in with the blue eyeshadow. I think this will help that blue eyeshadow not to be so stark when we put it on the lid. That, I feel like, was one of my biggest issues the first time I used that blue, is that I didn't really have a blending shade underneath it. And I'm hoping this will kind of help. So I'm really just kind of feathering this right through my crease and very, very slightly above. About halfway. Actually, let's take that about 2/3 of the way over, just right through the socket line. So if you have this palette and you're wondering what to do with these silvers or grays, that gray actually makes a really nice crease shade with the kind of peachy pink mattes underneath. I think that's a really pretty combination. Now I'm going to go back in just with my M504 brush. There's nothing left on this brush. I'm just kind of merging those two colors together, blending them together a little bit. Okay, now the moment of truth. Let's jump into the blue. So I'm going to start off in the ELF blue. Think happy thoughts. Think happy thoughts. This did not go well last time. I'm a little bit nervous. I've never had a makeup product intimidate me as much as this thing does now. I'm still afraid of it. I'm just trying to decide how I want to put this on. So I'm going to take this brush right here. This brush actually reminds me a lot of my Juvia's Place Small Buffers, just a little bit smaller. This one is from Coastal Scents. It's their BSO2. I don't know that they still make this. If they do, I will link it down below. It's a really nice smudge brush. It's just a little bit smaller and a little bit stiffer than my Juvia's Place one. It's also not quite as soft, which is why I don't like using it quite as much. ELF also makes a standard C-shaped eyeshadow brush that I think would work really well for this. I'm going to try just packing it onto my brush and just start by packing that onto the outer third of my lid. And then I'm kind of wiping that brush off, and I'm just going to go over this edge very lightly. And then right there at the center mark, I'm going to kind of feather this over a little bit just to help with the color that's going to be blending on top of it. I don't want that line to be harsh. So far I think that's looking better than it did last time. I'll worry about this edge in a minute. I'm going to take that same brush, I'm going to wipe it off, and we're going to go into the Juvia's Place blue. And same thing, I'm just going to start off right here in the outer corner, closest to the lower lash line, and then tap this onto the lid. These look pretty much identical to each other. Am I wrong? So I like to kind of keep my eye open as I'm putting this up through my crease, so I don't go too high or too low. Then I like to turn my brush kind of horizontally and just pull a tiny bit of that blue just onto that very outermost corner right there. This is just going to help with the shape of this outer corner. Alright, that is some seriously blue eyeshadow, Mimi. Now I'm just taking a clean cotton bud and I'm just lightly going over this edge right here, just to kind of clean up that line a little bit. And then I'm going to go into my beauty sponge, just with what's left on it. There's just probably a little bit of concealer in here. I'm just tapping over this edge right here, just to lift off any blue that may be transferred down here to darken up my eye where I don't want it dark. This is one of my favorite tips for if you struggle with your dark shadow kind of seeping down a little bit too low on your lower lash line or outer corner area. This is one of the best ways to clean it up. I go in first with this just to keep it from smudging when I go in with my beauty sponge, and then I just take my beauty sponge with the leftover foundation or concealer that's on there and just kind of lightly tap it right below where that eyeshadow was placed. And you can see how much that helps to clean it up. Alright, now I'm just taking the tiniest bit on my finger of each of the shades, first the ELF, and I'm just going to pack that right on this outer corner right there just to bring back some of that boldness. Same thing with the Juvia's Place palette. Alright, now we're going to dip back into the Juvia's Place Coral palette, and I'm just going to use my finger for this one. We're going to take the lightest silver right there, and I'm going to start on my inner corner and just lightly tap this right past the center mark. And once I get to the center, I just like to kind of press back and forth right there to get them to kind of merge together. Okay, that is a really pretty combination. Wow, that's pretty. Dang. Now I'm going to take the darker silver and I'm going to put that right slightly on this side of the center, just where those two shades are kind of overlapping, right before where we get to that bold blue, which is already kind of disappearing. I'm going to have to go back in with that color, but that's okay. That kind of just helps soften that line right there and give us a little bit more of a gradient. So I did want to show you guys the difference on my fingers between these two silvers, just so you can see. It's actually pretty subtle. This one is just a hair darker than the lighter silver. Now one more time, I'm going to dip back into that blue. I just want to pull back a tiny bit of that blue right there. Here's the ELF one, just right on my pinky finger. I'm just going to tap a little bit of this right above the lash line, right over here. And now the Juvia's Place palette, same thing, just right on the corner of my pinky finger. I'm just tapping that right on this outer lash line and slightly tapping it in just along the lash line to create that kind of angled look right there. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I mean, this is definitely a look that's out of my comfort zone, but so much better than the last blue look that I did. Am I right? I feel like I won. I feel like I beat you, blue eyeshadow. So I do want to just go back into the dark gray, just on my M507 brush right here, and I'm just very, very lightly going to run this right on this topmost edge of this outer corner. Just kind of give it a little bit of blend. Now I've wiped off my M507 brush, and I'm going to go back into the shade Bloom from the Anastasia Sultry palette. Very lightly, I'm just going to place this right above where I just put that gray. Just to pull back the tiniest bit of that pink color. And one more time, I'm going to go back in with my Cotton Bud and just lightly run that under this lower lash line right here. And I'm also, one more time, going to go into my Juvia's Place Small Buffer Brush. I'm going to take a little bit more of that peach shade. And I just want to run this right under the center of my lower lash line, just to pull back a little bit of that pink tone. Alright, and that is it for the eyeshadow. I now just want to add a little bit of liner. And today I want to go in with a little bit of black liner. I'm going to take my Urban Decay 24/7 Perversion liner. Add a little bit of this just to my upper waterline only. I'm not going to add any to my actual lash line. Then I'm going to throw on a couple of coats of my Tony Moly mascara, and I will be right back with you guys. Alright guys, so here are the finished eyes. I feel quite victorious right now. I conquered this blue eyeshadow. It still is a look that is outside of my comfort zone. I probably would not wear this to a garden party. I'm just kidding. Do those even exist? But I think it is absolutely stunning. If you are into blue eyeshadow, either of these blues will knock your socks off. Now I just want to finish things off with a little bit of blush, a little bit of lip product. So I'm going to go in with the Peach Persona blush. This one is in the color Georgia. I just want to put a tiny bit of this right on top of that pink blush that we already put on. These are quite pigmented, but I love the color and formula of these blushes. They are really, really nice. Ooh, perfect match. Now on my lips, I'm going to take a tiny bit of my Essence lip liner. I'm just going to add this right to the center below my lower lip and a little bit on top, just to the Cupid's bow area. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Wet n Wild Close Off. And there we have it. A perfect blue eyeshadow look using all of my neglected shades. This one actually came together better than I thought that it might. Who knew that a peach and a blue and a silver would go so well together? But I really love how this one turned out. Thank you again to Imelda and Stacey and Maria for this video idea. This was such a fun one, and I'm so happy to kick off April with redemption. Thank you all for stopping by today. One more reminder, if you haven't yet subscribed, be sure to do that before you leave. I have some really fun videos coming up the rest of this month. And one more reminder to the rest of you, keep the suggestions coming. Nothing is set in stone. I'm kind of just going week to week based on what you guys suggest and most want to see. And also, if you see a suggestion down below that you think, yes, that would be such a fun video, be sure to let me know by giving that comment a thumbs up. But I hope that you guys are having a good one. I hope that you and your families are doing well. Sending you all so much love, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Now I need to go add a card to that video where I used the blue eyeshadow and looked like a complete amateur. And I know you guys will probably downplay that, but I did get a comment from somebody that said, you should stop doing makeup, period. I could send this look to that individual person just to be like, I had a bad makeup day, but sometimes I can do makeup. Sometimes. Yeah, you want to say hi? Yeah, come over here. Who is this little angel?
Charlie.
Charlie. Oh, she's the best, huh?
I want to pick one of
You want to pick some makeup?
Uh-huh.
Yeah? So many choices. Let's see. Which one is your favorite? Which color?
Blue.
Blue. What's on Mommy's eyes?
Blue color.
Blue colors on my eyes. You like it?
Uh-huh.
Want to put on your nose? Whoa! You like it? Does Rudolph have a blue nose?
No.
What color is his nose?
Red.
It's red.
Yeah, I'm growing bigger.
You are growing bigger, huh? You're getting so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the trampoline.
On the trampoline?
Yeah.
Wow. The bancholine?
Yeah.
Oh.
I got an Ethan Russ.
With Ethan and Wes?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Wow, you're getting so big and doing tricks, huh? Let's try this one. You ready for a funny one? You like that one?
Yeah.
What about this one? You like that one too?
Your face is blue, Mom. Your hands are blue and your face is blue.